Thank you so much for being here today. Well, welcome to Conversations with Denise. I'm so excited, as always, about my show and our subjects. Well, today we're going to be talking about domestic violence. I am celebrating a great weekend, a closing to a great weekend that we've had. It's called Spiritual Takeover Makeover Weekend. It's for women. And so I thought it would be fitting to have a subject, to do a show on domestic violence. You know, a lot of us have people or victims of domestic violence living with us, working with us, going to school with us, and it's never talked about. One place that is very, very rarely spoken of is in the church. And so we have it in the church. And so I thought it would be befitting, because of this Spiritual Takeover Makeover Weekend, that we have this taping about domestic violence. Would you help me to welcome to the show today my guest, retired Lieutenant Umar Abdul Hakim. He is retired 25 years from the Newark, New Jersey Police Force, spending the last 15 years in internal affairs and focusing on domestic violence as on its outward. So would you help me to welcome Mr. Umar Abdul Hakim to the show. Thank you so much for being here. I know I kind of messed up your last name a little bit, but tell us a little bit about you before we start talking about the subject first.
Yes, I spent 25 years with the Newark Police Department, and as you said, my last 15 years I was in internal affairs, assigned to internal affairs. My last 8 years I was the domestic violence coordinator, where I investigated domestic violence incidents involving Newark police personnel.
Involving Newark police personnel?
Yes, that's okay. Police and other civilian employees.
So they may have been not a police officer, but they were employed by the department?
Yes.
Okay. And are you married?
Yes, I've been married 28 years to my lovely wife. 28
is a great number, yes. Give it up, give it up for the lovely wife. And I know she's here, she's with us today, so we may give her a shout out. But the subject is domestic violence. And I know you did it for the police internally. But as a police officer, I know that you have seen many, many, many cases of domestic violence. What is domestic violence?
Well, domestic violence is a pattern of abusive behavior where the subject wants to gain control over, for lack of a better term, we'll say intimate partner.
Okay.
But when we talk about victims of domestic violence, it can be a household member, a spouse, a sibling. So it doesn't have to be an intimate partner. As long as you live in a household and you're a victim, you can be classified as a victim of domestic violence.
So if you have someone who lives in your house, maybe they're a friend who's lived with you, or and you have an incident where it becomes physical, or does it have to be physical?
No, there's 5 classifications of abuse. You have physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, economic abuse, and psychological abuse. So any one of those 5 can actually be classified as domestic violence.
So if you have someone living with you and they have taken advantage of you financially,
yes,
that could be classified.
That can be classified.
Now, you mentioned sibling.
Yes.
Now, you know siblings fight all the time.
Yes.
You're saying yes.
So well, you know what happens is we have to put everything in perspective, you know, and look at the totality of what the incident is. I mean, you know, we got a brother and a sister arguing, you know, that's, we say it's natural, especially in our culture.
Right.
But when it gets to a point where it becomes damaging, you know, like, you know, I don't like you because you're fat, and it has an emotional effect over a person, over the victim, it can be classified as domestic.
So if you have siblings, and okay, I'm going to give you the example that a lot of us had. I grew up in a household of 10. And so we'd say things like, well, that's why mama found you in the garbage can.
But by definition, yes. It is, by definition.
Because
yes.
that's belittling, that's kind of emotionally.
Oh yeah, it can have
an
effect.
And if you're the child that don't look like the rest of them.
Yeah, we got a lot of those too.
Okay, okay. So it could be an intimate partner, sibling, someone who lives in the home.
Right, dating relationship or spouse.
Dating relationship or spouse. Now, I know that there's some statistics behind all of these particular areas, but overall, domestic violence, what are the numbers, or some of the numbers, if you can?
You know, I prior to coming on the show, I said, you know, let me look for some statistics.
Okay.
And what caught my attention, from 2001 to 2012, 6,400 people died in Afghanistan and Iraq.
6,400 in Iraq.
During the same time, there are 11,400 people in the United States died as a result of domestic violence.
So almost double.
Double.
Almost double in the same time. So when you say people, because typically when we hear domestic violence, we often think of the woman being the victim.
Right.
But that's not always the case.
No, I mean, people find it hard to believe that men can be victims. I know some myself. But no, most of the time, you know, society finds it hard to deal with, you know, when you say a man.
Right.
But men can be victims of domestic violence, sexual abuse.
Okay.
You know, so.
Okay. Well, we're going to take a break, and we're going to come back, and then I want to talk about some of the different, you labeled like 5 different categories. We want to talk about how some of these incidents may happen, and sometimes people may not even be aware that they're victims of abuse. We'll be right back after a very short break, and we're going to come back, and we're going to discuss some of the topics or some of the avenues where people are not even aware that they are suffering from domestic violence. We'll be right back after this break.
Nowhere in the corridors of pale green and gray, nowhere in the suburbs in the cold light of day, there in the midst of it, so alive and alone, words support like bone, dreaming of Mercy Street, where you're inside out, dreaming of mercy.
Well, welcome back to Conversations with Denise. We left on the last segment talking about domestic violence and some of the different avenues that is classified as domestic violence. You know, you even said siblings, which, you know, may have a lot of people watching this show and say, oh my goodness, do I need to report my kids? But prayerfully, we'll get through that and you won't have to report them. Let's talk about how to recognize whether or not you are a victim of domestic violence, because a lot of times people have developed a habit of living a certain way, and they assume that it's the norm. And so they don't know that they are a victim of a domestic violence situation.
Well, you know, because I think that when we talk about domestic violence, the first thing someone thinks about is physical.
Physical, right,
right. Assault, he hit me, he pulled my hair. But there's a number of different classifications. Like I said, you know, you have the psychological.
So let's break that down a little, because a lot of times people don't know. We say psychological. Sometimes people confuse psychological and emotional as the same thing, and it's not. They're close, but not the same. Psychological domestic abuse, an example.
When we talk about psychology, you know, I want to break you down. You know, I want that power.
Okay.
I'm trying to gain control over you, but I come home every night and I say, well, you fat. You know, I just can't. You
So you're in my head. You're messing with
when I look at you. You know. So now I start to look in the mirror and I say, wow, am I fat? You know, you start doing things to abuse yourself. You start dieting. You know, you try to do whatever you can just to please. I don't want to just say him or her.
All right.
You know, but those are, you know, the cycle, you know, you're nitpicking all the time. You know, it's always, you always got something going on because, again, let's not
always complaining,
forget,
never complimenting.
It's about control.
Okay.
It's about control.
Okay.
You know.
Okay, and so emotional.
Emotional. I'm breaking down your self-esteem. You know, I'm breaking down your self-esteem. I'm coming in. I won't speak to you. You know. The bills are done. It's time to pay bills. I'm not even entertaining it. You know, whatever you say, it goes in one ear, out the other. I'm not even entertaining. I'm watching TV. You know, don't bother me right now.
So you kind of like just tuning me out. You're detached from me.
Yes.
Wow. Okay. And then there was
sexual.
Sexual.
You know, the biggest misconception, especially in a marriage, you know, I'm in control, but people fail to realize that a wife or a husband, but for all intents and purposes, a wife cannot be raped.
People believe that a wife cannot be raped.
A wife cannot be
because
raped.
she's married.
Right.
Okay.
And that's far from the truth.
Okay. Now you're going to have to explain
I'll give you an example. I want to say in 2012, I received a call one night that one of my officers had been involved in a domestic violence. What happened was he left, and he lived in West Jersey, so he had to drive 35 minutes to get to his house. When he got home, he beat his wife first.
And he's a police officer.
He's a police officer. Then he forced her to have sex, and after he had sex with her, he beat her again. So now the kids come downstairs. He pulls his gun on the kids and threatened to kill them. He gets in the car, goes back to work as if nothing happened.
Okay, so now that's emotional, that's sexual.
Sexual,
emotional,
physical.
Physical, psychological, and he got some psychological issues.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know, it's believed that a lot of victims or a lot of assailants in a domestic violence relationship were victims or they've been exposed to it.
Okay, let me ask you this, because before we leave the subject of the police officer, if a couple, they're married, now I don't know whether they were divorced or they were still together.
They were married.
They were married.
Yes.
Still together.
Yes.
Okay, and so how does she classify being raped if that is, I'm married, we're married, we got into an altercation, or we didn't? How does she prove that she was raped?
Well, that's a whole different, you know, when we talk about the criminal aspect.
Okay.
That's something totally different. You know, but because she called, you look at the fact pattern.
Okay.
The fact pattern is he came home. We don't know, well, I know what caused the argument, but they got into a dispute. Started verbal, it elevated the physical.
Okay.
But after I gained control of the power, I beat you, now we have the sex. That's secondary, but that's part of it.
Okay, but let me just be I don't want to be the devil's advocate, let me be the advocate. We have an argument, we have a dispute, okay, aside from the physical, because I don't know how to explain that, but I have an argument. Some people would say make-up sex.
Yeah, but he beat her again after that.
Okay.
You know,
he beat her again after that. Okay.
And she called the police. You know,
she called the police.
She called the police.
She called the police, okay.
And filed the report.
Okay.
And, you know, once you start following the beans, this is what happens.
Some follows we have to take
Right.
it. Okay, well, that went too fast. We will be right back after this short break, and we're going to pick up on this subject because I have a couple more questions about this.
Okay.
This one. We'll be right back after this break.
Hi, I heard some yelling and I wanted to know if everything's okay.
Yeah, everything's fine.
Okay, so we're back and we left off talking about an incident that happened with one of your police officers. And my question was, if they're married, she proved that it was rape. But you said, well, once you file a complaint, the ball is rolling.
Right.
So in any domestic violence situation, what is the first steps? Is that the first steps?
Well, the first, because it's a delicate situation. But what happens is you take the police out of it, you know, because years ago you would come and it was as simple as you call the police and you say, I was assaulted, and I'll tell the cop, well, I was assaulted too. So the easy thing was, all right, well, I'll lock both of them up.
Oh, okay.
You know, but we stopped doing that.
Okay.
Because you can't have two victims. There has to be an aggressor. So what happens is you file it, you call the police and you you make a report.
Okay.
At that point, the police officer has to make a decision. You know, if there's physical violence, somebody's definitely going to be arrested right
Because
there.
there's evidence.
Right. If there's not enough, he'll take it and refer it to the prosecutor. But in New Jersey, we would like to separate or take that entity away right then.
So you would come in, if a complaint is filed, you come in, you try to separate.
Oh, well, you're going to always separate the combatants because I don't want the victim to hear what I have to say, and you don't want the stories to clash.
Let me ask you, I'm sure you have, but how do you handle a situation where file a complaint and then they retract it?
Well, the case in point is that with the police, with the football player Greg Hardy.
Yes.
He beat. And now there's footage now where you see how bad he actually assaulted the woman.
Right. Yeah.
At the end of the day, you still have to have, you have to follow up, you know, in the court of law.
The authorities have to follow up.
No, the victim
the individual has to
follow up when it's time to have this matter prosecuted. And most prosecutors want that ground ball. Listen, I have the victim, I have my evidence, we can come to a decision where there's a conviction or some type of order where you can't be within 1,000 feet or 200, a final restraining order. Right.
There's many cases. We just had one recently here in Jacksonville where a young lady who was in a relationship with a young man. She had children by this young man, and he ended up murdering her in front of her children. And that happens often, and then the family never knows that there was this type of abuse. What do we say to women who may be having emotional, physical, especially physical, I guess all of them. All of them, right? How do we go about, as a family member, as a friend? I mean, we're doing this show today because I want to bring awareness, and I want women that may be listening to the show, maybe in the audience, maybe having some of these challenges. I want them to reach out, I want them to get help. But in the same breath, a lot of them say, but I don't want him to go to jail. I don't want him to get in trouble.
Well, I don't want to sound callous, but if you continue to take that posture, eventually you'll become that victim. You'll have the toe tag sitting in a morgue. You know, so we hope today that you will say, you know what, enough's enough. But the sad thing is you have family members, friends that know about it. And their position is, I know what's going on, but I didn't want to get involved. You know, so now you're the person going to the funeral saying, you know, I could have done. So you're going to wear that grief. So the time is now. You know, listen, it's better to have something done. Listen, our friendship means a lot. But if it means me getting you some help and now you don't want to be bothered with me, then I'll deal with that.
Then I'll take that, because at least I did something. I got you some help. I brought some attention, some awareness to it, and I may have just saved your life. May have lost a friend, but I've saved your life. And so I think that's one of the things that people have to take into consideration, especially if you're a family member or someone who knows of those types of incidents happening.
And believe me, most people know what's going on because you have the signs. You know, you see the person coming in coming to the house for dinner. You know, all of a sudden they're wearing shades. They got more makeup on than they ever wore before. You know, those are the flags that you start looking at. Like,
what's going on?
What's going on?
Oh wow. Okay, we have to take another break, and we will be right back. And we're going to talk a little bit more about what we can do to help those that we know may be having a challenge in this area. We'll be right back after this message.
Nowhere in the corridors of pale green and gray, nowhere in the suburbs, in the cold light of day, there in the midst of it, so alive and alone, words support like bone, dreaming of Mercy Street, where you're inside out, dreaming of mercy.
Okay, so we're back, and we left off talking about what we can do if we know of anyone that's suffering, male, female, or even a child suffering from any type of abuse. But we're talking about domestic violence today. I have a couple of statistics that I kind of looked up. One of them says every 9 seconds, a woman is assaulted. Every 9 seconds, a woman is assaulted. And I guess it's not just the violent, physical, but any of those it could be. Also, domestic violence involves 1 in 3 are women and 1 in 4 are men.
Yes.
1 in 4 are men. And so I was surprised to hear that. And another one says that 19% of these involve some type of a weapon being used. And in 85%, women are using the weapons. And in 15% of it, men are using the weapons.
And it's probably a stat that says probably 24% of them are recidivists, victims or offenders.
Offenders, yes.
You know, so they've been victimized repeatedly. You know, it's okay to beat me. You know, I forgive you, I still love you. And they beat you again tomorrow.
Yeah. This is a subject that I guess the more you talk about it and the more you hear or gain knowledge on it, it makes you wonder, and it makes you look at those that are around you, because although it may not be physical signs, you know, I know, we all know someone who is emotionally being abused on a daily basis. They've told us the stories, how he talks to me, how she talks to me, how they ignore me, or economically, financially. Oh, he's taking all the money out of the bank. She's taking all the money. I bring my paycheck home. I don't know what happens to the money.
You have, or we'll take that one step. I want to I want to enhance myself, my status, so I can help my family, so I'm going to go to school.
Right.
I want to further my education. No, you can't go to school.
Exactly. Now, I've
You
heard
can't go to
that.
school.
Or I've heard the one, and I know no one will believe this, but I've heard the one that said, don't lose weight. I don't want you to lose weight because I know when you get your body together, you're going to leave me.
Yeah.
When my health was at risk, not my health personally, but the person's health was at risk. So to me, I don't know how you would, what do you do? You know, I'm knowing that somebody brings us those situations. Do we file a complaint?
Well,
because what would our complaint be?
Well, you know, the one thing in law enforcement, you always need, like I said, you need to follow up. But with domestic violence, you can always file a third-party complaint, which is in most crimes you can't. But with domestic violence, you can, I know that you're being victimized, I can call the police and file it. You know,
do I have to, without leave, I can do it anonymously?
Well, no. Because you need to let them know who you are.
Okay.
You know, you need to let them know.
And see, I think that's why people don't say anything.
Yeah.
Because again, like we said earlier, I don't want to lose a friendship. I don't want to get involved. I don't want them to get mad at me. But then at the same time, if you love the person, you're concerned about the person, and you sit back and you watch the person over and over and over and don't say anything,
it's just as bad.
And now you're an abuser.
And you're putting yourself, just psychologically, you're putting yourself in such a position that you're going to start wearing this.
Yeah.
And you're going to take it out on your family because you know you should be doing something. You know, and again, this is awareness. So we're hoping that, you know, you'll stop sitting around and talking to your friend and talking to your girlfriend. Do you know about Mabel? She's getting abused and I see it, but it's none of my business.
Wow. And that's not something that we want to do. Well, we have a lot more on this subject, but we're going to have to close for right now. But we're going to pick back up on this topic, and we're going to talk a little bit more further in depth about what we can do. What are the signs? What do you do when you see it? Do you do something the first time that you see it, or do you wait until it builds up? We have enjoyed this conversation on today. I've enjoyed it because it's enlightened me a lot. And like I said, all of us know someone who may have been challenged with these areas of abuse in their lifetime. But we'll be back to talk more on this subject of domestic violence after this break. Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. I hope you've been enjoying the show so far. If you have any ideas you would like for me to talk about on the show, why don't you email me, Facebook me, or contact me at the address on the screen and let me know your ideas. I'm looking forward to talking with you next time on Conversations with Denise.